Welcome back to the Daily Drum on WHUR and Sirius XM Channel 141. This is the Insight segment. I'm Harold Fisher. Tonight, a conversation with Alyia Gaskins, mayor of Alexandria, Virginia, from the challenges facing schools to housing development and growth to the critical work of preserving Alexandria's historic legacy. It goes without saying, there is a lot happening in the city directly west of the District of Columbia. The issues impact families, businesses, and of course, the future. We will get into all of that and more as we talk with the first Black woman to lead one of the region's most vibrant cities, Mayor Alyia Gaskins. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. I appreciate it.
Well, it's good to be with you, Harold. I'm really excited for the conversation, and I thank you for the invitation to be here.
Sure thing. Let me first get into it. This is, of course, an historic election. You're now 9 months into the job as the city's first Black mayor. How would you describe the biggest opportunities and challenges facing the city right now?
Yeah. So let me start with the challenges. I think the biggest challenge that we face right now has often been our strength in the past, which has been our proximity to DC. We are a city that has over 16,000 federal workers. And so as the administration has made changes to the federal workforce, as many of our residents have been laid off or as they're navigating uncertainty about the future of their job, that's impacting our community. We also have thousands upon thousands of government contractors and other industries that depend on research grants and opportunities from the federal government. And so that's having a significant impact. I think the other thing that we're seeing is as different executive orders and policy changes come out, whether that's impacts to our residents who depend on SNAP for food security or depend on Medicaid or other resources. We're trying to navigate those impacts and how we fill the gap as we are seeing a growing need within our community. I think the opportunity is that what I am seeing is through every challenge, I continue to see a community that is resilient, a community where neighbors are dedicated to helping neighbors and people are figuring out how we pull together public-private partnerships and other resources to make sure that people have what they need to weather these times, but hopefully that we find a way to help them come out stronger.
You said, for example, that one of the biggest challenges, one of them anyway, has to do with the changes coming out of the Trump administration. If I'm not mistaken, there are a couple of federal agencies that are moving to your area. HUD, I believe, is one of them. How is that going to impact the city? Is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? How would you characterize it?
So we're still figuring out the impact. And it's complex. So HUD coming to the city of Alexandria, it's a great thing whenever we have the opportunity to welcome new workers and new people who get to live, work, and experience our community. At the same time, HUD will be moving into the NSF building. And so we have thousands of NSF employees who are wondering where they're going to go, and many who uprooted their lives to move to the city of Alexandria to work here. Just a month ago, we learned about closures to USDA, their Food and Nutrition Services office here. That has implications for hundreds of workers in Alexandria. We're still feeling the impacts of kind of the downsizing of the Patent and Trade Office. So it's really complex. As new people come in, that's great, but we also don't want to lose the people we have. Instead, we'd like to create an ecosystem and an environment where we continue to grow and that these office moves are additive versus subtractive.
Do you have any idea of what's going to happen to the employees at the National Science Foundation? That story was, from our perspective, I mean, that was a summer story. We are now almost into the fall. There's still been no resolution to that.
Yeah, the work continues. I know that our staff is in conversation every day with leadership at all of the different agencies and with GSA. One of the things that we want to continue to make clear is that we are the ideal home for NSF. There's a reason why they chose here in the first place. We are a hub of innovation, but we're also just a great place to work with really great transportation and amenities and opportunities. So we continue to engage, we continue to advocate, and we continue to make clear that we'd love to be able to welcome HUD while also keeping NSF and create sort of a community that continues to invest in our federal workers.
DC has obviously been at the center of the National Guard patrolling the streets. And President Trump has said that he wants that federal presence to expand 20 miles outside of the District of Columbia. That includes Northern Virginia, and that also includes Maryland. What is your position on having the National Guard help with crime and beautification in Alexandria?
So what I would say is we don't need assistance from the National Guard or help with crime and beautification in our city. When you look at the data and you look at our community, we are a safe community where crime is going down. We are also a community that is ranked as one of the best places to live and one of the top 3 places in the country to visit because we are beautiful, because we are historic, and because what we're doing is working. So what I would rather say is if you want to come over here and experience that for yourself, but know that what we are doing works because we do it based on fact. We do it based on policies that focus on crime prevention and investing in preventing crime in the first place by getting at the root cause. And we make investments in the beautification of our city every single day. So I would not welcome that offer here on our streets.
What would you attribute that moniker of being one of the best places to live in the country? I mean, why would you say that Alexandria is? And keep in mind, I'm a DMV native, so I have been holistically familiar with Alexandria since the 1960s, even as a child. So I do have some institutional knowledge. But what is it that people don't know about Alexandria that would, in your mind, make it one of the best places to live?
So my perspective is a little different because I'm not a native. I'm originally from Pittsburgh. And so I'm somebody who chose to live in the city of Alexandria. And I can tell you the reasons why when I moved here, I knew this was home and where I wanted to put down roots, build my family, and build the rest of my life is because I think we are such a walkable and connected community. If you are looking to experience the DMV region, you get to live in a great community, but you are minutes away from the nation's capital, from the wharf, from great trails and hiking in places like Great Falls, from wineries. There's so many different places that you can get to, whether you want to walk, bike, drive, take the metro or bus. I think the connectivity is unlike any other place. I'd say too, what I love about Alexandria itself is you get the small town feel and that historic charm and character that you see on our waterfront and in Old Town. But then you go to neighborhoods like the West End and places like Potomac Yard and Delray, where you get to see how we are growing, how we're becoming more innovative, from breweries to new restaurants. I love the fact that literally on the West End, you can experience the food from Ethiopia to Afghanistan to just an entire world in a small place that you wouldn't expect is happening in Alexandria. I also love the different ways that we work on celebrating and investing in community, whether it's this weekend, we're having our big Black family reunion, or whether it's in the fall and you're getting ready for our Halloween parade or our Scottish walk parade. There's just all of these other things that are about bringing people together, loving on one another, and like finding ways to have joy and opportunity. And to me, that makes it not just a great place to live, but a place to be and experience.
I do want to talk about some of the issues that everyone is concerned about, certainly public safety and crime. Alexandria, from an outsider's point of view, crime in Alexandria has been spotty. And when I say spotty, it's Alexandria is generally known as a safe community. How would you characterize the issue of crime in the city?
So we are a safe city. And as I stated before, when you look at our crime statistics, you are actually seeing a decrease in violent crime within our community. I think we are fortunate in last fall, we brought on a new police chief, and he spent sort of the beginning of this year working with the men and women on his team to do listening tours in sort of every neighborhood across our city. And now they have rolled out a new crime prevention plan. And so we are really hyper focused on how we go neighborhood by neighborhood to look at the root causes and the different types of crime that may be happening in that area. In some places, it might be maybe they're navigating burglaries. In other places, maybe speeding is the major issue. And so really kind of putting forth a geographical crime prevention based strategy in order to make sure that we are out in every neighborhood, we are addressing issues before they start. And when we find issues, that we are working closely with our Commonwealth's attorney, and we are working closely with our other law enforcement partners to get issues resolved right away.
What are the things that you are calling the chief about mostly when it comes to crime?
So I would say right now, probably the call I make the most is there is a lot of fear and concern in our community about an increased presence of ICE. And many times what that has led to is every time somebody sees an officer on the street, they automatically think that they might be an ICE official or that some raid or incident is about to happen. So often I'm calling the chiefs to make sure that I understand sort of where we are versus where ICE might be, what we're doing, and how I help people understand the basic functions of law enforcement that will still continue to be executed by APD and going on in our community. I'd say the other one that comes up the most right now is sort of issues related to speeding, parking enforcement on our streets. As I mentioned earlier, we're a very walkable community. And so when people are not obeying our traffic laws or when they're driving recklessly, we've had some incidents of drag racing or things like that, making sure that we have a presence right away and that we're able to address those issues.
Drag racing. Where do you drag race in Alexandria?
There's not a lot of spots.
There's so much congestion in Alexandria. There's nowhere to drag race in Alexandria.
Yes, there is. Don't let the people tell you that all our streets are just clogged with traffic. There's still some main thoroughfares that are very, very close to the highway where people want to speed quite quickly and then hop right on the highway and try and get out of Alexandria before they get caught. So trying to put an end to some of those things.
But back to your point about dealing with ICE, and I will ask you about that specifically. But I guess, and you've been in office about as long as the new White House administration, but you're not new to the city, and so you were on the council before. So before January, certainly there were some non-immigration related crime issues that grabbed your attention. And I guess that's what I was asking about prior to these issues related to the administration's immigration crackdown.
Yeah. So prior to, I would say that that's the case, then sort of conversations that I was engaging with the chief on in our law enforcement. I used to sit on when I was a councilwoman, I sat on our gang prevention task force. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of the conversations we were having were about where are we seeing gang or crew activity within our community. I think a lot we were seeing are among young people. And so kids like 14 to 18 engaging in behaviors that they should not. And so spending a lot of time looking at mentorship programs, intervention programs, workforce programs, after school programs, how we partner better with law enforcement, but also community and faith-based agencies to make sure young people have something to do and a different path. I think one of the statistics that stopped me in my tracks when I sat on the task force was they said that girls as young as 9 were engaging in gang activity. And when they were interviewed, a lot of the young women said it's because they already felt like they didn't matter or that they weren't important. And so figuring out how we intervene quickly and as soon as possible so that every young person knows their beauty, knows their importance, and knows the potential that they have. So that was an issue. I would say another issue calling about is just kind of, I would say, we've seen in some of our parks people engaging in, setting off fireworks or drinking in our parks. And so more of the things that create noise and nuisance related issues, and how we intervene on those.
Quality of life issues, certainly.
Mhm.
Thank you for that. I need to take a quick break, but we want to remind our listeners that you can hear this and every edition of the Daily Drum Insight segment via podcast on our website, WHUR.com. The original Quiet Storm with Raheem Devon is next on WHUR-FM. This conversation continues on Sirius XM channel 141 and 96.3 HD2 in just a few seconds. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Daily Drum on Sirius XM channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. We continue our conversation with Alexandria, Virginia Mayor Alyia Gaskins. I wanted to talk to you about your own politics. Why did you win?
Wow, nobody's ever asked me that question. Why, or at least they haven't asked me it in that way. I think that I won for two reasons. So one of the things I focused on was that I cannot help, how old I am was when I was born, and I cannot help where I was born.
You're a
The
young
only thing,
person. You're
yes,
mid-30s. Yes.
the only thing that I can do is use the time that I have to get results and to focus on changing the things that I think need changed. And so I was able to demonstrate to our residents that every bit of time that I have had, I have used my time to continue focus on solving problems. And that's what I think we need in leadership. And so I think that resonated with a lot of people. I'd say the other reason is I made sure that I interacted with and engaged with every part of our city. I think sometimes when people think about Alexandria, they only know certain neighborhoods or certain communities, and we are extremely diverse. So whether that was going to Ethiopian coffee ceremonies or sitting on the bus and just riding with our neighbors and talking to them about the fact that I ride the bus too, and what I want to see for our transit and what I want to hear from them. I had my kickoff, and at my kickoff, there were folks who live in multi-million-dollar mansions on our waterfront, and there were also 6 women who took the bus from our shelter to be there for my kickoff. So I think I was able to find a way to connect with many different groups in our city and find ways to help them see that I'm serious about engaging them, and I'm serious about helping them shape the future of this community.
Mm. What was the thing that you found most striking when you were campaigning? Something that perhaps you did not know, or something that really surprised you hearing from Alexandria residents?
A great question. Um,
And if there's a story you want to tell, please do.
yeah, you're making me think back. I would say probably one of the things that I found most striking is when people are learning about you as a candidate, you
Mm.
never quite know where they're getting their information about you. And so they begin to paint a narrative in terms of what they think you are for or against based on kind of those images. And so oftentimes when people would run profiles on me, they'd run profiles that focused on my age, or they'd run profiles that focused on sort of my background and education. So I'm a Vanderbilt grad. I have 2 masters, one from the University of Pittsburgh and one from the University of Georgetown. When people hear that, they think, well, she must have no struggle. She's not old enough to have experienced anything, or she's not old enough to have been through anything, and she's gone to all these great institutions. She must not know what it's like to really have to navigate and be from a working class family in Alexandria that's just trying to figure out how to live. And so being able to speak to people about the fact that I was raised by a single mom, part of why I work so hard is because every single day I watch my mom work and sacrifice just to make sure we had food on the table or to figure out how to prevent an eviction from happening. That even though I am the mayor, my husband and I work a combined 5 jobs to be able to live in this expensive city. And so constantly constantly finding ways to tell my story and explain what I've been through was maybe a surprise or not something I expected that I would need to do as much. But I'm glad, because then people get to see a different side of me. And I think they understand more that for me, this isn't a political stepping stone. This isn't something I woke up and was like, one day I'm going to be a politician. This is more what I feel is my life's work and my calling to help people who have helped me be able to sit in the chair that I'm sitting in right now.
You spoke about living in that expensive city. Yes, Alexandria is expensive, has been expensive. The Amazon issue did not help. The the Virginia Tech campus that was coming to the Crystal City, the Potomac Yard area. None of those things help. Some would say, on the face of it, these are some of the growing pains of prosperity. But there is, as you suggested, there are a lot of working class people in Alexandria who are working multiple jobs and really fighting to make ends meet. There is that housing middle issue that also has come up. How do you address that in a city where everyone wants to be?
Yeah.
And often, as DC's mayor said on my program many years ago, when you talk about housing in the District of Columbia, rents are charged based on what the market will bear.
So I think there's a couple different ways we tackle it, and there's no silver, solution or no one solution. So I think the first is a focus on production. We know that part of the reason why it is expensive to live here is there are not enough housing options. There's not a diversity of options that meet people where they are and where they want to be able to live. And so we are constantly looking at ways to produce and increase our housing supply. I think the second focus is on preservation. We also know that there are a lot of units and there are a lot of housing right now that it's affordable, but it's affordable maybe because it's old or it's not that new market housing. And so we need to be investing in how do you keep that affordable, but also how do you keep it high quality? Because we don't want people just living in something because it's old and cheap. We want to be building partnerships with landlords. We want to be enacting policies that help people be able to stay in their homes, the homes that they have lived in and worked in, and help support for generations. I think the last part, and we continue to advocate at the state level for this every single year, is sort of increases in tenant protections, making sure that people have the ability to fight against rent, exorbitant and crazy rent increases, that they have the ability to enforce quality standards within their apartments and their rental housing. So those are kind of the big policy goals, and we're actually getting ready to do a brand new housing master plan update. It's called Housing 2040 that the council will look at this fall. So that's kind of the overarching goal. I'd say the other piece, though, and I want to go back to, you mentioned like Amazon. I think the other thing is turning players in our ecosystem into helpers. And so I can give you a very concrete example. We have a development called the Sanse and Naja in Arlandria or the Chililagua area within our community. This is one of the first developments that we're going to have that is solely affordable. So it is over 400 units, and those units are affordable to people making $40,000 or less, up to about $60,000. It's also going to have childcare, workforce development opportunities, and it's going to have satellite offices for our city agencies. That project, to be able to subsidize units at that much, so way below what the market will pay, the city cannot do that alone. We've put in money, we've used much of our ARPA funding to be able to hold the project together. And then there was a significant gap in the tens of millions of dollars. We went to Amazon and they are closing that gap. And that is the only way that that project is being able to move forward. And so I think we are also trying to be very proactive that if you are in our city, if you work in our business in the city, you have a stake in making sure that workers can live here too and can live in the highest quality housing. And we need you to be a partner in helping pay for some of these projects because we can't do it alone.
Do you have a target date for the completion of that project? Approximately?
I should know that off the top of my head. It's either it should be end of 2027, if not 2028. But if you drive by Glebe Road, you can already see it coming out of the ground.
The other thing with your background in urban planning, one of the other things, and you can tell me how you feel about this, the way that Alexandria is geographically set with the housing as it is now, you can't build out. A lot of times you have to build up.
Yes.
What might that do to the character of the city? I mean, is that a good thing? How would you characterize it?
So, in a couple ways. The first thing I would just say is I fundamentally believe that character is not determined by buildings alone. That character is also shaped by the people who live here. And so being able to make sure that we have options for seniors who want to stay, for young people who are getting ready or thinking about having their next child and they need additional space, or new entrepreneurs or folks who want to come into our community, or even others who have lived in one housing type for years but want a different housing type, we have to be able to have those options so we don't lose the actual characters who make up a community. I'd say second is density is a tool. Oftentimes people will ask me, well, are you for or against like tall buildings? To me, I don't think that makes any sense. The question is, what is the growth that we want to see and where does it make the most sense? So there might be areas in our historic district where no, you're not going to see buildings that are 10, 15 stories, because that's not maybe where that growth makes the most sense. There are other areas, like I think of the Eisenhower Valley, where the businesses and the residents there have said that they want to be the densest part of Alexandria. They are also right next to a metro. So places like that, it makes sense for us to go up and to go up as high as we possibly can, because that's where you want to see growth. You want to see growth near transit, growth near jobs. And so I think it's all about, as we plan, how do we make sure that we are leveraging the tools that we have in the areas where they make sense, so that we can keep the people here who make our community and give it the characteristic feel that it has that goes beyond just buildings and bricks.
Another issue related to housing, you have uh, recently, highlighted a drop in homelessness. First of all, to what do you attribute that? And given the recent federal administration shifts targeting the homeless in the District of Columbia, are you concerned about those initiatives coming to Alexandria?
So to your first part of your question, what do we attribute our drop in homelessness to? I would say it goes to our focus on getting people housed. And so we have worked very closely with partners like Carpenter Shelter, as well as some of our private landlords, in order to increase our stock of permanent supportive housing. And so being able to get people housed and in units right away. And that, I think, has been really important. I think it's also tied to the larger conversation we were having about tenant protections and eviction prevention, because what we were finding were that a lot of the folks that we were seeing become newly homeless, it is because they had recently lost a job or they saw an exorbitant rent increase. So how do we stop it on the front end? And we've got some great partnerships, like our task force to prevent and end homelessness, that is constantly working with us and with the state to help us to be able to provide additional policies and resources to get people housed. I'd say, of course, we are, concerned about seeing an increase in our unhoused neighbors. We are actually already seeing folks who, we have a very robust homeless outreach team, and they go out every single day and they talk to people who are on the streets right now. And we are hearing from people who have said, they've come from DC. What we're doing to be proactive is the best thing about this region is there are so many regional partnerships. So through the Council of Government, through the different coalition of nonprofits, organizations, we are in daily meetings trying to understand what every jurisdiction is seeing, what they're attributing it to, how they're understanding people are coming here, what their shelter capacity is, what our shelter capacity is, so that we're able to respond accordingly. We are also working to increase our weekend and evening outreach services as well, so that we can support people in those ways. So as of right now, we haven't seen a significant uptick, but we don't want to wait. We're being proactive and making sure that we have whatever systems in place to support people that we can.
You mentioned a term I wasn't familiar with. Did you say carpenter housing or carpenter?
No, Carpenter Shelter. It is a organization here in our city that not only runs its own shelter, but also helps to run the Alexandria Community Shelter. And they provide a number of different services and supports.
Okay. So, again, are you concerned about an encroachment from the federal administration in uh, in dealing with your homeless issues? Because certainly in the District of Columbia, it is just as complex, although on a much larger scale, as you may have in your area, not just about shelter, but also about mental health. As you know, there are some people who are experiencing homeless who prefer to be on the street for whatever those reasons may be. Um, what is in your Alexandria Mayor crystal ball that no one else seems to have a handle
I wish I had a crystal ball. So I
on?
guess to the first part, am I concerned? No, because our issues look different than maybe what people have seen in other parts of the region. So, for example, when you come to Alexandria, we do not have any encampments. When you come to Alexandria and you talk to our homeless outreach professionals, our nonprofits, the people who you see on the streets, most of them we know by name. Most we are in contact with, and we are slowly working to build trust and a plan to move them off of the streets. Every single day, I'm hearing a new story of someone who we've been able to help. And maybe it didn't happen that first day, maybe it didn't happen the second, but maybe week 1 or week 2, we've been able to get them into the supports that they need. So our scale and our situation, I think, looks a little different. Our approach, though, will not change, which is that we will always be focused on housing first. Because whether you are dealing with a mental health issue or a substance issue, or honestly just you're navigating other issues that are preventing you from reaching your full potential right now, you need stability to be able to address those things. And we have seen that we've gotten much better outcomes when we can help with that stability first, can build that trust, and then get you to the program and the support that you need to be successful.
I do want to talk about the immigrant issue because Alexandria obviously is one of the most diverse communities in the entire region. You have a huge Latino uh, community. I think what almost 30% from all over uh, the Latin America community. You have North Africans, you have Northeast Africans, you have West Africans, you have Eastern Europeans. I mean, it is, you can go to one of these festivals or events that you were talking about. If you close your eyes and you walk through, you can likely within a half hour hear but anywhere between 5 and 10 different languages. We can talk about the ICE thing in a bit, but just from the immigrant perspective, uh, how do you make it comfortable to serve all of these different kinds of people and make it livable and comfortable for them?
Yeah. I feel like that is the thing that we are striving to figure out every single day, because there is not going to be a one size fits all approach. It's going to be getting in and being in community and trying to figure out what we can do. So I'll give you an example. Right now, in Chililagua, we are in the middle of a street vendor pilot. And so this pilot came about because in the community, many people in their home country, there are people who sell fruits and goods and things just on the street. Well, that's not necessarily the way that things have been set up here in Alexandria. There are also a ton of different rules from the health department, state code about what you can sell or cannot sell. You also are in front of other businesses. So it's on the sidewalk, but who owns that sidewalk? Who has permits for those sidewalks? And so we've spent the past several months in a pilot where we've had, I think, 2 vendors participating, where we've been working with all of the different agencies that need to be involved, from health to code. And then we've also been working with nonprofit groups. We've been working with immigrant rights groups, and we've been working with the other businesses on the streets to figure out how do we embrace a culture and allow people to do business in the way that they're familiar with, while also in a way that works, that might work for our city and our community. In this particular case, this program has been a lot harder to run and operate. And so we're now going back to the drawing board. We're realizing maybe this is not the way we do this program, but we're going to keep talking to the community and keep talking to the residents to figure out something different. That looks completely different than what we see on the West End, where I have communities like Southern Towers, where there's a significant Ethiopian population.
Mhm.
And so when we did our master planning for the Alex West plan, we actually started, we were going to have it translated in Spanish and English. We ended up having to do the entire planning process in Amharic and Dari and Pashto, and trying to understand different ways of engaging. We've now added into that plan different types of businesses. We've added in different types of, even in our park, potential for grills that look different than the types of grills that we traditionally use, so that people can make different foods. So I can't say that it's always comfortable for everyone. What I can say is that we are learning and evolving as a city in how we engage and how we figure out what people need for this to truly feel like their home, and for truly feel like it's a place where their culture is not just welcomed, but actually like supported and invested in.
And I'm sure that there are language barriers and challenges, particularly as it relates to, if we go back to the issue of public safety. I mean,
Yeah.
hiring police officers who are, multilingual and or specifically multilingual, considering the vast diversity of the people who live there.
Yes. And one of the things, the council recently passed is a new language stipend program. What we're finding is there are a ton of languages spoken in our community. There are also a lot of staff that speak those languages. And maybe we didn't know. Maybe they didn't tell us that they speak it. And so now you can actually get a stipend for helping us translate, helping us be able to engage and understand your culture differently. And even time from your, I guess, normal day-to-day job to help us be able to advance other programs because of the language skills that you bring. So it's kind of like a language bonus. We are also trying to be really intentional in our hiring to make sure, especially in positions that are on the front line, that we start to look more like the diversity that exists within our community.
Back to the ICE issue, uh, and I have to even think about how to ask this question, only because depending on your particular politics or your leaning, how do you address, that issue? Some people like the fact that ICE is picking up people off the street and taking them to, you know, the other side of the world. Other people are concerned about, those who may be undocumented as being protected. So how do you address that?
Yeah. So what I will say is, for me, and I've said this a couple times, core to my values and beliefs, and what I
Mhm.
believe the city of Alexandria reflects as well, is that we have been and we want to be a city where all people are welcome. And that when I think about our immigrant community, I think about our small business owners. I think about workers who are powering Alexandria every single day. I think about teachers. I think about service workers in our hospitality industry, taxi driver. I think about all these people that this city would not exist without them. I also think about, we talk about being an arts community. We talk about culture and vibrancies. That only exists because of the diversity that we bring in and are able to celebrate and allow people to express. What we have seen, and I think it was on the news a couple weeks ago, when ICE has shown up in our community, the way they are showing up, I think the most recent incident, we had a group of workers that were working on a roofing project and were literally called down off the roof by mass agents who did not identify themselves, not talk about why they were there, and just took them away with no due process, no civil rights, no fundamental execution of how we have done law and due process and constitutional policing in this country at all. And so to watch that, people working, trying to make a living, trying to provide for their families, to be ripped out of our community, I have a problem with that. I don't see how that makes us safer in any means. I think what I've seen instead is it's sparked a lot of fear and anxiety. I went to our high school, and one of the first things somebody asked me was, how are you going to keep us safe? I don't know how to answer that to a 15-year-old child, let alone do I think that should be the question they're asking, when as we start the school year, they should be thinking about, I don't know, what math class are you going to take? What sport might you play? Those sorts of things. So yeah, I don't know that I have a perfect answer, because I can't stop it. I can't tell you the hour or the time when ICE will be in our community. I can just tell you, I don't like what is happening, and I don't think it is achieving the goal that other people want to pretend and say that it is.
I only have a couple of more minutes, so I'll ask you these questions, and you can just kind of be as brief and succinct as you can. Where is the city on the Title IX issue regarding transgender exclusive and inclusive bathrooms?
Yep. So this Alexandria, along with several other jurisdictions, our school board has said that they will continue with the policies that we have, and making sure that we have inclusive bathrooms and inclusive school communities for our transgender youth. The Trump administration, as well as our state, has since threatened to withhold funding for us and to put our jurisdictions on a status of high risk, where I guess our grant funding and other resources would have to be reviewed under a different level of scrutiny. So all I can say from there is the city council and the school board will continue to work together to assess any potential negative impacts and to figure out what we continue to do to ensure stability and resources for our kids and their families.
Final question, and I still have so many more. I'm really kind of out of time, and I probably should have asked you this at the top of the conversation, because it's a really critical question for not only you personally, but I think your community. Steelers or Commanders?
Oh, Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh wow!
There's no, so
you can resign. You can resign. You can resign.
My community can push back, but what I tell them when people ask me this is, at the end of the day, you should want somebody who is loyal, has grit, and knows what it's like to win, and that would be a Steelers fan.
You probably should not go to a sports bar, Madam Mayor, to watch when the Commanders are playing anyway.
I go in my Steelers gear. I am who I am in every occasion.
Oh my goodness. Well, I guess you can't have everything. Mayor Alyia Gaskins, Alexandria, Virginia, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much. We will certainly be in touch.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
You're quite welcome. That is the Daily Drum for this Thursday, September 4th. I'm Harold Fisher. Good night.